I'm going to tell you how to create freedom for yourself financially while working a regular job, being a regular person, living a regular lifestyle, uh, just using very good standard financial management principles to secure yourself and your freedom. So let me just tell you real quick my own story. My wife and I, 4 years ago, we've been married together for 5 years. 4 years ago, we started to get our finances in order. And it took us maybe 3 to 4 months. It was not that long of a process. It was painful at first. It did require quite a lot of work to establish those habits. We didn't have terrible habits, but we didn't have any formalized system. So it does depend on where you're starting from. We had a little bit of debt. We had a very inconsistent income. And originally what happened was my wife actually was fed up of living paycheck to paycheck, and she went to the library, free, right? We had a library card. She went to the library and she got every single book they had on personal finance. I'm talking like 15 books. And she went through each one of those. Half of them are crap, obviously. And some of them were very basic. And she read the children's books and everything just like to get the basic principles. And as she went through that, she came up with a system that we could use. And originally it was just spreadsheets. I'm talking like old school spreadsheets, and we went through line by line every single transaction we made. And that is the very first thing that I would tell someone to do is to trying to get their finances in order, is just track every single transaction. Going through that line by line initially really gives you the understanding, and it helps you to understand exactly where your money is going and what you're funding, and realize that whatever you're doing, you're funding something. So whether it's intentional or unintentional, that money is going somewhere, and that is part of what you're doing. So if you don't know what your attention is doing, if you don't know where your time is going, it's going somewhere. And it's the same with your money. So people just at the end of the month, like a typical person from my experience, will put all the money, all their expenses on a credit card, which is totally fine. I have no problem with that. At the end of the month, they basically know about how much their expenses are roughly, and then at the end of the month, they kind of look at their paycheck and they look at their credit card bill and they kind of decide, okay, am I up this month? Am I down this month? Is there any savings? Is there anything left over? That's how I was doing it for a long time. And I was smart enough that I made some money. So that was fine. But nothing substantial. And I would always end up blowing it on something. I felt too comfortable or whatever. I didn't have enough financial necessity. So going through line by line at first let us realize, like, where were we spending money that we didn't need to? Where were there like obvious things like subscriptions and whatever, but even also how many times you're eating out versus cooking meals yourself, or how many times you're going to some party or something, and you didn't really have that much fun. You didn't really want to go, but you still had to spend $100 to go to some birthday or whatever. So all those kind of things, we really decided, we really got to make the choice. Is this something that I want to do or not? And if it is, totally fine. And no shame, no like, hidden standard or something that was what we wanted to do. Um, I don't believe in like peer pressure or like whatever else people are doing. I don't really care. I'm going to do what I want to do, and what's going to make me happiest long term. And because of that, my wife and I have been able to generate basically $250,000 in the past 4 years that we could spend whatever we wanted to. It was completely our choice. Now we've invested most of that money into things that have paid off massively for us, and I'm very happy about that. Mostly in terms of skills and education and things like that. So that's the very first thing that I would want to do. Now is just track, go through every single expense, every single transaction that you're making, and just understand where that money's going and what you're choosing to do with it. Now, the second thing that I would say is once you have that habit in, then you need to begin actually planning. So from that information, then you can know how much do I actually spend each month on different categories. You begin to categorize your things, right? So we've developed what we think is our best system, and it took us some iterations to get that sorted out. I'm happy to share that with you if you want to. Just leave something in the comments, and I'll let you know. I'll send you what our system is, what our categories are. So, but you begin to sort things out. So, like as an example, at first, we are kind of thinking, well, do we break down toiletries and food separately? And we're trying to track those things differently. And then eventually we realized, listen, this is super annoying because you go to the grocery store and you'll buy a toothbrush and you buy food and you buy milk. And so, is that the same transaction, a different transaction? So we just decided, listen, groceries and toiletries is one category. Eating out is a bit discretionary. It's up to you. So we decided a separate category. And that was just how we worked it out. Transportation includes the car payment. Our car's paid off now, but we still have insurance and gas and those kind of things. So you begin to sort of figure out what works for you and where you can categorize things. Again, I'm happy to share our system. Just leave me something in the comments and I'll send it to you. Um, as you refine that, then you can see, well, I am spending $1,000 on food. Well, where can I cut that? And what is that money on? Is it on alcohol? Is it on fancy coffees and those kind of things? Is it on ice cream? I don't really care. I don't have any like, I don't have any standard that someone, you can't go to Starbucks or whatever. I don't really care. I just want people to be intentional about it. What I don't like is when what sort of gets me riled up is when people say they can't fund the things that they want to fund, but they're unknowingly funding the things that they don't really care about that much. And so deciding what gives you the most pleasure or the most value, that's what you need to decide. But if you don't even have that information, you can't make that decision. That's why knowing the categories that you're spending your money in, then you can decide where you're going to spend that money on. I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes here. You can decide, listen, I have $100. Where am I going to spend this money? Like, what am I going to have this money do for me? So at that point, you'll begin to start being intentional about how you're funding things. Now, the third phase basically is once you can have enough future and enough foresight into your expenses, and then okay, good, this is exactly what's going to cost me next month. And my ideal would be, March 1st, you already have April funded. April 1st, you already have the next month's funded, right? We always fund at least 1 month in advance. You could do more. I don't think doing 6 months is necessarily the most beneficial, but I think 1 or 2 is totally fine. And that way, absolute worst case scenario, you lose all your income for whatever reason. You have 6 weeks of built-in expenses, totally separate from your emergency fund, totally separate from all your other categories. And you can have so much stability that I know right now I can just do my job, and I can just make sure that I'm doing the things that I really want to do. I can choose to work or not work because I know that if I wanted to, I could leave and have 6 weeks to find a new job and be totally fine and not even change my lifestyle at all. Now, the very last thing, this is kind of a little bonus feature right here. When you do this, you will create extra income. You will create extra money, right? This is the difference that your expenses and your income. Now, the thing you have to do with that is invest it into things that will make you more money. I personally believe that I know that the thing that's made me the most money in my lifetime is me. So I've always invested very heavily into myself and my ability to produce more income, my education, my mindset, these kinds of things. So that's what I think has the best ROI. But whatever it is, take that money. Don't just go buy yourself more luxury. That's not the point. Buy yourself more freedom. Buy yourself more freedom. And as that freedom increases, that amount of freedom increases, you eventually reach a point where you can choose to do whatever you want to do. You can choose to work or not work if you want to. And that's what I want for you. That's what I consider to be true freedom. This doesn't mean that you're going to sit on a beach the rest of your life. That to me would be very, very boring. But you can choose to do those activities that you feel are the most fun and most fulfilling. I hope that helps you. My name is Rob Witt. I do hope that helped. Thank you very much.